In this video, I'm going to focus on commercialization of collegiate sport because I think it is the most applicable to my discussion points and provides many good examples. Commercialization of sport seems to have many benefits on the surface. The three biggest benefits I found in the literature included funding, increased opportunity for students to learn valuable lessons, and benefits to the social aspects of sport. College sport utilizes commercialization in many ways, and it can be beneficial. Schneider suggests that it can bring in revenue that can be used for program growth via better quality equipment and physical resources. In their article, Beyer, Slack, and Parent suggest the more commercialization, the higher the probability a team will win medals at major competitions, which of course results in more revenue. They suggest this is probably due to increased access to quality facilities, implementation of more standardized procedures, and more professional staff instead of amateur volunteers who may not be as educated. Once commercialization brings enough money to save the athletic programs, more students may be able to participate and thus hopefully gain valuable skills from sport. Schneider states just a few examples of the skills, including cooperation, self-discipline, work ethic, fostering lifelong friendships, and overcoming challenges. Socially, Schneider says sport provides a greater amount of pleasure compared to pain, and commercialization can only increase the happiness, according to him. It also brings people together. However, once the money starts growing short, colleges see commercialization as a simple and effective way to make money and sustain their program. There are many consequences to commercialization of sport, the biggest one being losing focus on the students and only worrying about money. In the video titled Sports for Sale, SMU Associate Athletic Director Cynthia Patterson discussed how SMU is trying to put the student back in student-athlete by mandating sports ethics classes for freshmen. When asked about commercialization of sport at SMU, one athlete stated, "It's not a game anymore, it's a business." In his book titled Billion Dollar Ball, Gall suggested some schools spend 10% or less of their athletic budget on athletic scholarships, much of it going to salaries or debt. The simple fact shows that students are not a priority, even though many schools make it seem that way. An example of this, also from Gall's book, is the $3 million the Kansas City Athletic Department spends each year on academic support services for their athletes. This includes tutors, specialists, and even walkers to follow athletes around and make sure they get to class. This may seem beneficial on the surface, but what is their real motive? If it really was the students, why aren't regular students given the same expensive support services as athletes? And with all of these services available, why do many student athletes still struggle academically but are still allowed to play on the field? I found many examples of schools neglecting student athletes and turning a blind eye once the athlete portion of them was temporarily put on hold. In their book, Nocera and Strauss listed many examples of this, so I picked a few. Andrew Jolly received an athletic scholarship to Hampton University. He was a great student and athlete until he tore his Achilles tendon in practice. He was unable to play anymore, so the department revoked his scholarship. He dropped out of school due to cost and did not graduate. Kyle Hardick played football at University of Oklahoma and tore his meniscus during practice. The school canceled his scholarship and he did not graduate. John Rock decided to pursue an out-of-town academic internship for one semester and double-checked with his coach and athletic director to make sure his scholarship would still be there when he got back. He was told not to worry about it. When he got back from his internship, a new coach had his position replaced and his scholarship revoked because he was not present to play. He did not graduate. With a focus on winning and money comes lots of corruption. The Sports for Sale video mentioned an assistant basketball coach at Drake who was fired for writing papers for students. It also mentioned Terrell Jackson, a basketball player at Drake, who sued the school for failing to educate him. This simply should not happen. Schools will also bend the rules of admission to get athletes enrolled successfully in order to make money off of the winnings. Gall stated that many football recruits arrived with SAT scores 200 to 400 points below other incoming freshmen, yet are still admitted. At UNC, there were even fake independent studies courses that never met and required virtually no work, designed to keep athletes eligible for play. Another consequence of commercialization overload in sports is the increased response of fans. The book titled Fanaticus, Mischief and Madness in the Modern Sports Fan provides many examples of how fans take it way over the top when the stakes are increased. This is prominent especially when a program needs a winning record to secure funding for the future of the program. And I listed a couple examples on the slide, but perhaps one of the well-known ones is Brian Stowe, who, while walking through the parking lot to catch a cab, he was almost beaten to death by two men at Dodger Stadium, supposedly just for being a Giants fan. He went into a coma and suffered a skull fracture and permanent brain damage. He now uses a walker to get around and has no memory of his beating. I think that parents deserve their own slot in this discussion because they are a special case. Although my discussion has mostly involved commercialization of college sport, youth sports are a very delicate but important piece of the pie. The increased stakes of winning through commercialization efforts have caused many parents to essentially lose their minds while watching their children play. This breeds violence and unethical behavior from the parents for many people to see, including the kids. Daniel Wan, a psychology professor at Murray State University in Kentucky, suggests youth sport parents may be the worst behaved fans. His theory is that team identification is one of the best predictors of fan violence, and most parents have high levels of identification with their children. This is all relevant because fans and parents at youth sporting events are setting bad examples for our youth. This may cause the next generation to have a skewed view of what is acceptable to do at sporting events. This should be a red flag. We must slow down the commercialization and thus the intense focus on winning because the next generation may be our only chance in addressing the issues that commercialization of sport has caused.